I want you to picture this. You're in your car and maybe you just left work or you were at the house and you had a conversation or you had a huge argument with your spouse and you're in your car and suddenly it hits you out of nowhere and you just start crying. And you think to yourself, your very first thought is, oh my God, what the heck is wrong with me? Why am I crying hysterically for no reason? Nothing is wrong with you. In fact, that moment of crying in your car might be one of the most honest moments that you have had all week.
Hey, and welcome to Masks Off Inner Freedom for People Pleasers and Perfectionists. This is a podcast for those who are tired of holding it all together. I'm Kim Gross, your host, and if you've ever felt like you're doing all the right things, but still feel anxious, disconnected, or quietly burned out, you're in the right place. Here we talk about the patterns you don't even realize you're living inside of: self-abandonment, over-functioning, chasing approval, and mistaking productivity for your worth, and more. This isn't about fixing yourself. It's about remembering who you were before you learned to perform, perfect, and please to belong. Each week, we'll slow things down. We'll unpack the nervous system, the inner critic, and the subtle ways that you learned to disconnect from your true self so you can stop living from pressure and start living from presence. This is your space to take the masks off. So let's begin.
I thought would be a really good topic to talk about, since it's one that most of us are probably unwilling to admit or share, that we've had those moments in our car or moments anywhere where we just break down and cry. And you might say, I don't even know why I was crying. It was like the stupidest, simplest thing that set me off. My husband said something that was off the cuff, and I don't know why I just overreacted and I went absolutely batshit crazy and just broke down crying. So at the end of the day, many of you that are here listening to this podcast hide our emotions because we learned, or we were conditioned, that it's not okay to cry. We were conditioned that we had to be strong. We were conditioned to keep it all together, hold it in, hold it tight, especially if you are high functioning, super uber responsible, and the one that everyone relies on. And chances are, I'm going to venture out and guess that you are one of those things, if not all of those things, because if you're not, you probably wouldn't be here listening to this type of podcast. It is because you're the one who is super responsible, the one everyone relies on, that you hold everything in until you can't. Here's the truth. Our emotions, our feelings, they don't just disappear. They don't go away because we disregard them. So I noticed this week that I was feeling a little bit more nudgy with my food, wanting to eat more. I've had more cravings throughout this week. And then I was journaling, and I haven't journaled in a while. I'll have to add that in as well. I did take my journal out, And I realized how many times throughout the last week or two that I had an emotion or I had a feeling and I just pushed it down or I ignored it, pushed it aside, suppressed it. Mostly because I had too many things to do. I didn't think that I could take the time out of my busy schedule to sit down and actually feel my emotions or to journal. As I said, it's been a long time since I have journaled. And it's not that I'm having negative emotions all day, every day. I don't have that kind of load of negative emotions these days like I used to. There used to be a time when I had them going on all day, all the time, because there's such a buildup and pile up of pain and emotions that I would not feel or process. So again, emotions don't disappear just because we ignore them. Our feelings don't just go away because we ignore them. They do quite the opposite. They build. The pressure builds when we ignore our emotions, when we suppress them, push them down, sweep them under the rug. It builds until it finally releases. It's just like a pressure cooker, the pressure inside the pan, the water, it's building. And then sometimes it just finally overflows unless you take the heat away, take it off the heat. Same thing happens with our emotions. If we just keep letting it pile up and let it build and keep putting the heat underneath our emotions, which would be the triggers, right? Whatever's triggering our emotions, if they keep constantly coming at us and we're not doing anything to relieve the pressure, it's going to just build up until you finally spill over, boil over, explode. So, again, it does come from just ignoring your feelings, pushing them down, sweeping them under the rug, but it can also come from the pattern that I talked about the episode where I talk about the pattern of micro yeses. You say yes and you say yes, and then you explode. And when you explode, then you're in this vicious cycle because then you feel shame. You might think to yourself, I shouldn't have reacted like that. But here is the truth. You didn't really overreact. It may have looked like you were overreacting, and some would probably say, yes, oh my God, why did you overreact that way? But if you really go underneath and you break it down, you overheld all of these emotions. Honestly, the whole part about the shame, I can so remember feeling this way when my kids were younger, before I was really doing the healing work, the inner work, and I was still in a place of being super reactive because I was saying yes all the time to everything and everyone, just about. And then when I was utterly exhausted from saying yes to taking care of this one and taking care of that one and managing this and then managing that and hardly saying no, that I would eventually snap on one of my kids because they would push a button. They would just keep pushing and pushing without knowing it, of course. This is all designed to help us learn and see our patterns. And so then when I would snap at one of them, I can remember feeling so shameful because I was like a lunatic. I was being batshit crazy at that point, just saying things that was coming from a place of resentment, from exhaustion. And I was definitely in my limbic system, and my nervous system was so dysregulated that there was absolutely no way that I would have been able to respond to them in a more conscious place. And that's why I'm so passionate about doing this work of helping others, helping all of you to recognize the patterns. That's the first step, is awareness of the patterns, or they call it pattern recognition. When you can become so keenly aware of the ways that you show up, the various patterns that are coming from an unconscious place, coming from a wounded place, coming from a place of reactivity or from childhood, subconscious programming, however you want to say it, your ego. There's a number of ways to explain why you behave the way you behave. It's not who you are, it's not a personality flaw. It was a way that you learn to adapt. And when you can become so keenly aware of those patterns, then you have choice to do something differently. Will you always do something differently? Of course not, because it's a practice. It takes time to unhook from those patterns. Those patterns have been set into place, they've been glued on. The masks that you're wearing are glued on, and it's going to take a minute for them to come off. So I encourage you to be gentle, to be compassionate. That's the quickest, best way to get to a place of freedom and unhook from showing up in these ways, is that every time you repeat a pattern, every time you go back to saying yes, you're over functioning, you're managing everybody, all these micro yeses, everything that I talk about on here, you're overachieving. Every time you go back to that place, instead of allowing your inner critic to shame you, berate you, put you down, if you can go to a place of having more compassion for yourself, more gentleness, more grace, more space, you will notice that the patterns will start to dissipate more quickly. And that when it shows up again, you'll be able to recognize it like that much quicker. And then you'll know, okay, what can I do differently?
I want to pause for a moment and share a resource I created for those of you who are ready to go deeper than a podcast episode. If you're noticing your patterns, the overthinking, the self abandonment, the inner critic, but you're not sure how to actually shift them, I've created a digital course that walks you through that process step by step. This course is designed to help you understand why you are the way you are from a nervous system and conditioning perspective, and more importantly, how to start responding differently with awareness instead of self-judgment. You can move through it at your own pace, in your own time, and come back to it whenever you need grounding or clarity. If that sounds supportive, you can learn more by visiting my website, www.kimgrosscoaching.com. All the details are there.
Or you can ask yourself the question, in this moment, do I want to berate myself for showing up this way again? Or do I want to have compassion and gentleness and grace? At the end of the day, going back to the situation of crying in your car, again, you might have gone to the place of criticizing yourself, judging yourself. What is wrong with me? I'm so weak. There's just something so messed up about me that I overreacted in this way. And now I'm bawling in my car. I'm have completely broken down and lost control. I first want to say that crying is not weakness. It actually is a way to regulate your nervous system. It's a way to release the pressure that's been building, and it's a way to process the emotions. It's a way to process the unmet needs. And your body is doing exactly what it's designed to do. Think about it. Like, where did crying come from? How did that even get invented? Why is crying even a thing? How did that even come about? If it were not for the fact that our bodies were designed to cry. Our bodies were designed to have the ability to release through crying. We were created that way. So there's got to be a purpose. It can't be that crying was created for absolutely no reason whatsoever. So it makes sense, and you can actually feel it if you pay attention, that when you do cry, that afterwards you are more regulated. It feels like a release, and that you're able to process that emotion. So your breakdown in the car wasn't the problem, it was the release. A couple of other ways that you can actually have healthy release of emotions when negative emotions or feelings come up. Besides crying, there are a couple of other things that you can do to help yourself release the pressure so that it doesn't build and build and build. One is you can let yourself cry intentionally. You can move your body. I'm always telling my daughter that when she's stressed out or overwhelmed or upset with anything, I'll always suggest that she just go take a walk, just to even move the energy out of her body. Sometimes it can just be having a conversation with a close loved one. Just speak it out loud, whatever it is that you're feeling. But again, remember from the previous episode that you want to just name it and not make a story about it. So, whatever it is that has you feeling so upset that you want to cry, instead of giving the whole story and telling the story, if the example was that you had an argument with your husband, instead of going into a full blown 20-minute dissertation on what an ass he is, and he said this and he did this, and this is why he's like this way, and why won't he change, and it's all his fault, and my life would be so much better and so much different if he didn't act that way, if only he would just change. Do you get what I'm saying? I'm sure you have heard that. You may have even uttered the words yourself, but instead of telling a story, that you can just actually name what you're feeling. And then the last thing that I recommend, which is one that I do use very often and has made such a huge difference for me, is to journal without any filtering. Just let it flow. If you've got to drop the F bombs, if you have to swear and you have to call every person, that's upset you, if you have to call them every name in the book, do that. Put it, whatever it is. If you're angry, write about the anger. If you're sad, write about the sad. If you're afraid, write about the fear. Whatever it is, just write about it unfiltered. Just get it out of your body so that your body doesn't store it. And I can tell you honestly that I really do value journaling, and I journal a lot. I've shared this before that my book that came out last year, Free to Be, A Pathway to Inner Liberation, is based on 21 years worth of my journals. Very vulnerable, very personal stories are in that book, and they come from my journals. Obviously, a little bit cleaned up, not as unfiltered as it was when I initially wrote it. But it goes to show you that through my journal writing, how I was able to process so much of what I experienced, so much of the pain that I had in my life. So, again, if you're feeling overwhelmed and you're feeling upset, that you can let yourself cry intentionally, move your body, speak it out loud, or journal. As I shared in the last episode about my 5-step power pathway, right? It's POWER. And the third step of the power pathway is W, the willingness to feel your feelings, the willingness to feel in order to heal. And I truly believe through my own experience and what I have learned is that in order to really have true transformation, to have long lasting transformation, that the old wounds, childhood wounds, do have to be felt and do have to be healed, right? If we pushed it aside from childhood, if we pushed aside pain or tried to bury it from when we were little, it's still there. And if you're in your 30s, 40s, and 50s and beyond, can you imagine how built up that has gotten by never addressing it? If you find yourself repeating stories about how your mom did this or your dad was that, do you ever wonder why that story keeps coming up? It's because you still have this emotional residue from the initial wounding. And so it's just been festering. Instead of cleaning the wound out, it's gotten infected. And now it's could be that it's pussing and it's all red and gnarly and nasty. And the only way for a wound, a physical wound, to truly heal is you have to clean out the infection. You have to get rid of the infection. Otherwise, it's just going to keep on opening up or persisting and never fully heals. The same goes with emotional wounds. So, in order to really get rid of the infection of the emotional wound, you have to go in and heal it. And so, how do you heal the emotional wounds? You have to feel it. And just like I said before, that when it comes to that pain, that you have, you can't go around it. You can't go over it. You have to go through it. You have to go through the pain in order to get to the other side. How do you go through the pain? You go through the pain by actually feeling the feelings and processing it, moving it through your system and out of your body. And if you're still like, okay, I hear what you're saying, Kim, but it doesn't fully resonate. I don't know exactly what you mean in terms of how to feel the pain or go through the pain. I hear you, because I didn't know what it meant either years ago when it wasn't on my radar or I didn't have a full understanding. I was like, what the heck are these people talking about? Feel the pain, go through the pain, to kick over. I'm like, are they crazy? But I understand it now. And if you are wanting more help to understand how to go through the pain and you're wanting someone to support you because you don't want to go it alone, maybe you already know what I'm talking about and you've been doing it for a little while and it just feels daunting. It feels intimidating. You don't want to do this alone and you just would love some support. Whichever case applies to you, then I invite you to reach out to me. I can absolutely guide you through this process, and I would be honored to take the journey with you. And you can just go to my website, kimgrosscoaching.com. You can click and book a discovery call. Costs you nothing to book a call. Or you can reach out to me via email and let me know that you are looking for some support on how to feel your feelings, how to heal the pain. And it might sound so simplistic. I don't know how to feel my feelings. Trust me when I tell you that while people might hear the words, oh, you just have to feel your feelings, most people, most of us do not know how because we were never taught, we were never allowed to feel our feelings, let alone identify. Most of us could not identify what we were actually feeling. So there is no shame in not knowing how to feel your feelings. And even still, most people still avoid it because it's way too painful for most people. I encourage you or invite you to reach out and get some support, or if it's not through me, through someone else, because you don't want to just sit in the pain forever and ever. There's a way to tap in and tap out. There's a way to titrate so that it doesn't flood your nervous system all over again, so that you don't re traumatize yourself. If you are listening to this episode and you feel like you are a person who can be overly emotional or you hold it all in, you can go to either extreme. You might be one that just is emotional all the time, or you go to the other extreme where you just hold it in, keep everything tight. Either way, it's hard to navigate your feelings in that way because you're in a more reactive place rather than from a place of conscious choice.
As we wrap up today's episode, I just want to say thank you for being here and for taking this time for yourself. If this episode resonated with you, I'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe to the podcast or leave a review. Even a quick star rating helps more people find this space and reminds the algorithms that these conversations matter. And I'd love to hear from you. If you have a question, a takeaway, or something that came up while you were listening, leave a comment or send it in. Let's keep the conversation going. This podcast isn't meant to be a one-way street. It's meant to feel like a community. If you want to learn more about me, my work, or the ways we can go deeper together, you can visit my website. All the details are there. Until next time, take a breath, take the mask off, and be gentle with yourself. I'll see you soon.